Welcome to ILTV's Israel Daily. I'm Aaron Porras, and coming up in today's newscast, fourth elections are nearly all but certain following an explosive late-night session in the Knesset. Meanwhile, a first-of-its-kind discovery linking one of the holiest sites in Christianity back to the Second Temple period. And finally, all this and so much more now available on ILTV's brand new homepage. Check it out for yourself and subscribe at iltv.tv. Now, unfortunately, we begin tonight with yet another probable terror attack. An unidentified Palestinian teen opening fire towards a group of Israeli police officers in Jerusalem's Old City Monday night. Then, chasing the suspect, police reportedly returned fire, killing him. Aside from this, only one other injury was reported, an officer falling during the chase. But that said, it's not for lack of trying. Security footage showing the suspect firing multiple shots from a makeshift Carlo-style submachine gun near one of the entrances to the Al-Aqsa Mosque compound and then trying to run away. Meanwhile, though unsuccessful, this latest attack is raising fears of a spike in anti-Israeli terrorism, as just hours earlier, police discovered the body of 52-year-old Esther Holgan in the northern West Bank. Holgan is suspected of being killed while out on a jog in a brutal Sunday evening attack. Investigators still looking for the culprit. In other news, the world is seemingly on fire. A pandemic that may be on the back leg but is still kicking. Poverty and unemployment skyrocketing, and now yet another apparent return to expensive, time-consuming, and controversial elections, the fourth in 2 years' time.
לכן ככל הנראה, כחול לבן, כולל אנשים שלה שהולכים להצביע כאן הערב, הולכים לגרור אותנו לבחירות מיותרות. אני רוצה להגיד לכם, אני לא חושש מהבחירות. אנחנו ערוכים לזה, אנחנו ננצח. הציבור בישראל יודע מי מביא מיליוני חיסונים, 4 הסכמי שלום, מי בולם את איראן, מי מביא ביטחון, ומי ישקם כאן את הכלכלה בתנופה רבה. אבל זה מיותר. ואדוני יושב ראש, יותר מזה אין לי מה להגיד. אני אצביע בעד המשך קיום הממשלה.
Late Monday into Tuesday morning, the Knesset convening to decide the fate of the government through a proposed draft bill. And the bill intended to postpone the deadline for passing a national budget, without which the government falls. But failing to pass in a vote of 49 to 47, the budget deadline remains at midnight tonight. And so unless a truly surprise last-second decision can be approved before then, the Knesset will automatically dissolve and elections will be set for March 23, 2021. The failure for the bill to pass in itself comes as a major surprise, though. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and alternate Prime Minister Benny Gantz working overtime recently to reach an agreement, only for their own party members to ambush them and vote to kill the deal. In particular, blue and white MKs Asaf Zamir, Miki Chaimovich, and Ram Shefa voted against the bill. Shefa, for one, having left quarantine just to do so. Then Likud MKs Michal Shir and Sharon Haskel also broke rank. Haskel by refusing to be present for the vote at all or even to answer calls from party leadership, and Shir by actively voting against the bill just before becoming the latest of Netanyahu's allies to defect and join with Gideon Sa'ar's newly formed New Hope party. With me now to explain just how we got to where we are, heading for fourth elections in March, is Avi Buchinsky, journalist and former chief of staff at the Prime Minister's office under Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. Now, Aviv, thanks so much for being with us. What happened? Why did this bill blow up? Why did the Likud and the blue and white MKs kill this deal?
I think it was some kind of a brickmanship battle, or rather, if I can say as an Israeli, it was a real poker game that both sides, the blue and white and the Likud party, played, hoping that one side will bend down and compromise. Netanyahu wanted to secure his rotation and to make some amendments in the judicial system on the one side, and on the other side, Benny Gantz and his party wanted Netanyahu to fulfill the original agreement in which in a year from now he becomes the prime minister. I think that one thing both sides, though we had the negotiations and trying to revise the agreement, I think that both sides didn't take into consideration one fact, that they lost the chips of the game. In other words, a few members in the blue and white party lost confidence in their leader and decided to defect. And in such case, Benny Gantz could not move on, trying to make a new agreement with Netanyahu, taking into consideration that Netanyahu is not that trustworthy politician as we have seen in the last year.
Okay, so in your opinion, was the Knesset dissolving inevitable?
Yes, actually, since they didn't manage to extend the artificial life of the Knesset yesterday, and this legislation failed. So yes, it is inevitable. Technically, it will come into being at midnight, but all sides understood that it's a dead end. They reach a dead end, and we're going for another cycle of elections, the fourth round, due to be held on March 23rd, 2021.
All right, now we've heard a lot about Justice Minister Nissan Cohen. Can you break down the controversy surrounding him?
It's a strange element because, Benny Gantz did something that there was no precedence in the Israeli politics. He came literally, in terms of politics, he came from nowhere, just landed into the political arena from being a former chief of staff to a real leader. And in one cycle of elections, even got more votes than the leading party, the Likud. He managed to arrange a huge number of figures around him, a few other former chief of staffs, and also Nissan Cohen, who was the leader of the Union Labor organization. But once Netanyahu started to take apart the things that he was in charge on, Nissan Cohen said, I'm against it, I disagree with it. And I think that Nissan Cohen became so strong in the Blue and White Party, mainly because they all realized that Benny Gantz apparently became a weak politician. So when the leader is weak, all the others can start nagging and hitting their leader. And I think that the fact that they have this disagreements, Nissan Cohen and Benny Gantz and others within the party, most likely that this party will not survive another round of elections. In other words, my assumption is that Blue and White will dissolve and we won't see this party any longer.
All right, Avi Buchinsky, thank you so much. And now for more explanations and predictions ahead of the probable fourth elections in 2021, I'm joined by author and former Knesset member for the Yesh Atid party, Rabbi Dov Lipman, and Ziv Maor, director of the Likud party's Hallel Forum. Gentlemen, thank you both so much for being with us. Now, did you see this coming? Rabbi, I'll start with you.
I was saying for a few weeks that it's 99.9% that we were heading to elections. I could not imagine the gaps between Blue and White and Likud coming together. But the one thing that I thought might push it was where Likud and Blue and White seem to be heading in the polls. But in the end, I believe Netanyahu was outmaneuvered, and I think we're just on the brink of going to the fourth election.
Ziv, same question.
Well, I didn't think that it was a percentage, a probability of 99%. I anticipated in the 50-50%. I think it was just as much probable for the issue to be resolved yesterday in a manner that will allow this lame duck Knesset to continue on for a few more months. But either way, this was not a term to be ended in 4 years. This was going for early or immature elections pretty soon this way or another. So it was decided for the elections to be in March. It was just as probable as the other option for it to be delayed.
Well, as you know, of course, there is a chance, a small chance, of a last-minute bill coming and saving the day before midnight. Ziv, do you think that there's any chance of that happening?
Yes, I think when I see the interest of the various members of the Knesset that have stakes in whether or not this Knesset presumes or not, I'm talking about the back seats of the Likud party. I'm talking about the vast majority of the representatives of the Blue and White party. All of them are people or individuals whose chances to be a part of the next Knesset are very, very low. And at the end of the day, the question whether or not a bill passes and becomes eventually a law is a question of how many members of the Knesset support it. Now, regardless of the leaderships of the parties, and we know that blue and white currently has got no effective leadership. They are the interests of the members of the Knesset themselves. And those people have interest to keep on the term, to get a longer and more sustainable chance from the public to preside in the Knesset and do some more stuff and enjoy the continuance of the term. So there is still a chance for it to happen. What will
well, Rabbi, hold on for a moment, Ziv. I want to turn to the Rabbi because, Rabbi Lipman, is this what's best for the country? And I'll give you also a moment to respond to what Ziv said earlier.
First of all, I don't believe there's any chance of rescuing it, just the amount of hours that are necessary to get legislation through and get to the point where it's voted on. But in terms of is it best for the country? Absolutely yes. You cannot have a country with a completely dysfunctional government where there is mistrust from the partners that are supposed to be working together. And I also think that it's an opportune time. Let's have a mandate given yes or no for how Netanyahu has managed the corona. Let's get a mandate yes or no for who's best to lead Israel in the diplomatic arena. Let's get a mandate yes or no who is the best to run us through the economic situation, the health situation. It's actually a perfect time, I believe, for the country, for the leaders to come, present their vision, present what they've done or haven't done, and let the country decide who they want to lead the country forward.
Well, it's interesting that you said that. Let's speculate a little bit. What do you think Prime Minister Netanyahu's chances are going into fourth elections? He's polling strongly right now, but he's down from the current 30-something seats that he has. But his court cases are ongoing. His Likud party is seemingly hemorrhaging members to rival Gideon Sa'ar's New Hope party. So what can you say about that?
I don't think people have seen about the court case already. They're all aware of it. I don't think he'll lose seats because of that. I do believe there is a real strong possibility of a coalition coalescing, which could unseat Netanyahu. And that's very much what this election is going to be about, because for the first time, it's actually all on the right wing, where you have Yamina led by Naftali Bennett, you have Gideon Sa'ar with his new party, together with a few from the more center. It's the first time there's a real opportunity from these people who have been trying to unseat Netanyahu to actually do so. And that is once again what this election is going to be about. The question is going to be the dynamic of how it's done. What is the mechanism, and how Netanyahu will decide to combat this possible coalition to unseat him.
I disagree. I think that those elections are going to be mostly about the coronavirus. If the elections will eventually take place a short time after we will start attending stadiums and concerts again, if the ammunition will take its course and the virus will no longer be a sustainable fear among Israeli citizens, then this will be held as a victory of Netanyahu. The vast majority of the public will be in some sort of euphoria as a result of winning and defeating the virus. This was going to be a thing that Netanyahu will gain credit for. If this is going to be the situation, then Netanyahu will, in the way I see it, will enjoy a huge victory in the upcoming election. On the other hand, if the virus will make a comeback, if the variants and the mutations that we see of the virus will still be an issue in the upcoming March, then this will be what the main color of the elections. We must remember that the fact that you and I are on a Rabbi Lipman are deep into politics and understand the issue of the budget, the issue of the various ministers, and the issue of leadership in general, the vast majority in Israel, just as much as in any other democracy, are not so much up to date about the politics, and they care about the day-to-day life, which were hindered by the virus. If the virus will be defeated, Netanyahu will defeat his opponents in the upcoming elections.
All right, Ziv Ma'or, Rabbi Dov Lipman, thank you both so much for joining us.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on. Don't let new elections distract you, as coronavirus is still a thing. Even if Health Ministry Director General Professor Chezi Levi says that we are prepared for a vote amidst the pandemic. The holidays in Israel carrying a spread rate standing at roughly 4.2%. Health Ministry officials saying the country is in the midst of yet another surge in coronavirus infections that requires a swift and forceful response. New cases now bringing the active number of infected to over 27,700, nearly 500 in serious condition, and the death toll steadily rising to 3,123. The government then, in response, approving of a ban against entry to all foreigners, including those with existing travel permits, as well as a new 2-week isolation order for any and all Israelis returning from abroad after 2 p.m. Wednesday, 10 days with 2 negative COVID tests. And this as a new, apparently more infectious mutation of the virus continues to sound global alarms. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu addressing Israel's next steps at the Knesset overnight.
התעכבתי משום שבשעה 12 בדיוק קיימתי שיחה עם אחד מראשי החברות הגדולות בעולם שמפתחות חיסונים. אני ביקשתי ממנו להקדים מיליוני חיסונים למדינת ישראל, ובאותה הזדמנות אני שאלתי אותו מה ההתפתחות לגבי המוטציה. הוא סיפר שיש להם פיתוחים, או שיש להם מעקב, מחקר עכשיו, על החיסון, והערכה שלהם שהחיסון שהם פיתחו, וחיסונים שיש בידינו, הם יכולים באפקטיביות גדולה לטפל במוטציה.
Reports saying that pharma companies Pfizer and Moderna will have results of the virus's efficacy against the new mutation within the next couple of days. Meanwhile, Israel's own IIBR vaccine, BreLife, is now entering phase 2 human clinical trials, which will include nearly 1,000 new participants across the country. And finally, as for the Pfizer-BioNTech vaccine that Israel already received, the vaccination campaign is still picking up speed. Tens of thousands of health workers, government officials, and Israelis over 60 already getting their shots, while some 200,000 more are already signed up on the waiting list. All right, continuing with coronavirus news, Israel has seen a dramatic increase in the amount of people in need after losing their jobs during the coronavirus crisis. Current numbers showing that over 100,000 more families are now living in poverty since the pandemic started. So what can and is being done to help? Joining us now to discuss is the CEO of Our Crowd, John Medved, who is leading a campaign by Israeli aid organization Yad Ezra v'Shulamit. John, thank you so much for being with us. Now, when a calamity like COVID-19 hits the world, who are the people who really feel it the most? And how has the coronavirus affected Israel specifically in that regard?
Well, see, it's really a tale of two cities, because on the one hand, the community where, I live and I work in the tech community is doing great. And in fact, so well, this year, there are billions of dollars of more capital being invested. Tech companies are going public at a absolutely record rate this year, 19 Israeli IPOs. Everything's fine, except when you look out there and you see what's happening to poverty and people who are hungry and who are not in the tech world, but who've lost their job and are now unemployed. These are absolutely heartbreaking pictures and stories that cannot, go unanswered, right? We must step up as a society, as a tech community, as a people, to make sure that everybody here is properly nourished and fed. And what Yad Ezra v'Shulamit do in terms of providing baskets, they have risen to this occasion and have doubled the amount of meals that they're providing and baskets they're providing. Turns out that donors are now stepping forward to double yet again the donations that people are making. And this is the appropriate Zionist Jewish response to this crisis, right? In other words, we can't just celebrate the fact that yesterday, for example, I got my vaccine, okay? And that was pretty exciting, because then I realized that it was the same day that President-elect Joe Biden got his vaccine. I figured that Israel's doing something right, okay? Because I didn't have any protexia. I just went on the Miyuchedet app and got vaccinated. And that's a wonderful thing. We're doing great. But on the other hand, we're not doing great. And we have to make sure that we are feeding the people who need to be fed and taking care of our the weakest part of the society.
So can you expand a little bit more on the new initiative that Yad Ezra v'Shulamit is currently undergoing or doing to address this issue?
Well, first of all, they are expanding their number of weekly food baskets to 6,000 people. That is a great, great number and very, very exciting. They're also providing matching donations from people who are anxious to see that their donations go up, so that can be done, especially during Hanukkah and the end of the year. And we at Our Crowd are very, very proud to be supporting and believers in this. Right now, the crisis among the weakest link of the society is bigger than it's ever been, and we must respond. So, when I was asked by my friends at Yad Ezra and Shulamit, people I've known for decades, and I've said, look, I support a lot of charities. I really can't focus on one today, but in this environment, we must make sure that people are fed and well fed. We'll make sure that they're healthy. We'll get the vaccine out to them, and we believe that we're going to come out of this not just as a tech community, but as a society in a stronger way. Okay, this is a challenge. This isn't our first rodeo, right? As Israelis and Jews, we've had to face a lot of challenges in our history, and not that it's katan aleinu, it's a big challenge, sure, but we have to rise to this challenge and do it now.
Well, I know as you already kind of alluded to, Yad Ezra v'Shulamit has been doing this kind of work and feeding the masses and the poor and the disenfranchised here in Israel for years, and the work that they're doing is incredible. Everyone at home, please, if you are interested in seeing what you can do, visit Yad Ezra v'Shulamit's website. John, thank you so much for being with us today.
My pleasure to be here today. Thank you.
All right, now in other news, an Israeli submarine surfacing in the Persian Gulf in what can only be described as an apparent taunt or show of force against Iran. The Israeli vessel crossing through the Suez Canal last week, reportedly with the approval of Egypt and in supposed efforts to send a message to the Ayatollahs in Tehran. And just earlier Monday, IDF Chief of Staff Avi Buchinsky warned Iran against any coming aggressions. The IDF, however, has not commented on the submarine report from last week. Still, meanwhile, in a very similar showing, an American nuclear sub also crossed the Strait of Hormuz on Monday, the anniversary of the killing of Iranian General Qasem Soleimani. All right, now for our final story tonight, we thought we'd remind everyone that not all news has to be hard news. The Israeli Antiquities Authority now unearthing a 2,000-year-old ritual bath that's shedding new light on the story of the Last Supper. Hannah Rifkin reports.
We are standing at the foot of Mount of Olives, adjoining the Valley of Kidron. It is a very well-known site in Jerusalem, known by the name Gethsemane, and it's very, very important for Christianity. Right here, there is modern church dedicated to those biblical events. Back then, 2,000 years ago, it was a field outside the walls of Jerusalem, full with olive trees. And in the middle of the field was some kind of olive press for making oil. Until now, we do not have any archaeological proof that something was here in the Second Temple period. Until now.
That's right. For the first time ever, actual remains from the holy area of Gethsemane in Jerusalem, showing a glimpse of daily life dating back to the Second Temple period. And all with the help of the Custos of the Holy Land, Father Francesco Patton, and a surprisingly fortunate accident.
The Franciscans, who owned this piece of land in Jerusalem, decided to build an underground passage leading from the church of Gethsemane to the Valley of Kidron, and suddenly, in the middle of this underground passage, the mountain collapsed and revealed ancient and amazing find. The Jewish ritual bath, known by the name the Mikveh.
But of course, located in the Mount of Olives, just a stone's throw from the Holy Church of Gethsemane, aka the Church of Agony, or the Church of All Nations, the discovery of this Jewish ritual bath also carries heavy Christian significance as well.
And according to the New Testament, right here, after the Last Supper, Jesus foresaw the destructions of Jerusalem. He understood that he had to die in order to save humanity for its sins.
And now let's take a look at the weather forecast. Tonight will be partly cloudy with a chance of light rain and lows falling to about 53 degrees Fahrenheit or 11 degrees Celsius. Then tomorrow you can expect cloudy skies with a good chance of showers and storms, but the high should average around 64 Fahrenheit or 18 degrees Celsius. And now before we go, let's take a look at what's going viral in Israel. So not the first dog I've seen skateboarding, but one of the best. Those are some skills. I tried this once when I was like 10 and I ended up scraping my knee horrifically. All right, that is it for today's news. Today's exchange rate is 3.23 shekels to the American dollar and 2.51 shekels to the Canadian dollar. For more news from ILTV, please like ILTV on Facebook, follow us on Instagram, and make sure to visit our website at iltv.tv and subscribe to our newsletter. I'm Aaron Porras. Thank you so much for watching.